What up, everybody, and welcome back to the Charter Podcast presented by St. Xavier University. I am your host today, 𝗗𝗏𝗍𝗶. With me, as always, my guy, Clay Harbor, and we're twinning today. If you're watching on YouTube, we have the same wonderful CHSN quarter zip. We texted each other before the show, hey, you don't wear the quarter zip? Let's wear the quarter zip on the show together. No, that did not happen. But feels good to twin with my guy, and we are here to talk all things combine. Lots of stuff happened. So, Clay, before we get going, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, man. We're not exactly twinning because I just go straight quarter zip. You know, you got the undershirt. I like the quarter zip just by itself, man. It's actually a warm day in Chicago. I mean, for Chicagoans, it's been a couple nice days out here. But no, man, I'm great. We've got a lot of good stuff to talk about. We got to hear from Poles. We got to hear from Ben Johnson. Obviously, their press conferences, but also just them making the rounds on the media circuit, the national media, the local media. So there's a ton of stuff that we got for you guys today, and we got some interesting takes as well.
Before we get going, I need your take on the quarter zip, no undershirt, because that is wild to me. You just go like raw zipper on chest, zipper on skin, and that's all right with you? You're okay with that?
Oh, I'm perfectly fine with it, man. One thing I did not get blessed with was chest hair, so I don't have to worry about that. So it's just perfectly fine. I'm not zipping up anything. It's just straight skin. So we're good.
All right, wonderful. Learn something new every day. That's going to be my number one insight from this podcast. But maybe we'll do some Bears insights as well. So let's start with Tuesday, the news pretty much of the day and of the week. Ben Johnson addressing the media again, and Ryan Poles as they gear up from the NFL draft. Let's start with Ryan Poles since he spoke first. What was your number one takeaway from what he had to say?
There was so much there, but the number one thing I probably took away was his praise of Ben Johnson's football IQ. I'm not saying that's a shot at 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗶, but I'm not saying that's not. You know, he's saying, this is one of the smartest guys I've ever been around as far as football IQ. And I think you can see that with Ben Johnson and just the way he put his staff together, the amount of experience that he brought in, the plan that he's coming with, and everything he's done. So I thought that was very interesting. And I thought, Poles is basically sounding like, in so many words, that he's willing to go after the guys that he's got. Obviously, he wants to keep himself in a good cap situation, but I think right now they're willing to go out there and get the players. And the one thing he did say was, when you have clarity, it lets you be more aggressive. Clarity on exactly what you need. And they're doing all the right things from what you hear. They're meeting every day. They're going over personnel. And when you got clarity on the player, on what you're looking for, it gives you more of an opportunity to be aggressive. So I expect the Bears to be aggressive this year. We haven't seen them do that yet. We haven't seen Poles be a super aggressive guy and go out there and really find his player and outbid the team that wants him. Obviously, the Bears were in on Saquon. They didn't go all in on him. The Bears were in on, a few other players that ended up being good fits. And I thought that was interesting. And then I also thought that another interesting blurb from Ryan Poles was, someone asked him, I can't remember exactly where I heard this. I think it was on Waddle and Sylvie's interview with Ryan Poles. They asked him, how do you improve on the misses that you've had in free agency? And I thought he had a good answer, because we have an after-action report for everything where we go through all the players that worked and the players that didn't. And we go through what didn't work about them and what worked about them. We go back and we revisit that. And he said, we grade all the free agent signings throughout the NFL year, and we look at what teams did that worked, that when they got free agents there, they worked, and what teams did that didn't. So for me, I thought those were my main takeaways from Ryan Poles. I thought he sounded confident. I thought he sounded good. It wasn't like that interview we saw when it was him and Kevin Warren, and he was slumped over and Kevin Warren was doing all the talking. Looks like a guy that's really energized, ready to go. And hopefully, he can bring in some players and improve this roster, because they have the cap and they have the draft position to do. And the other thing before I turn it over to you, Alex, and get your take on what Poles said, was I thought it was interesting. They said that their needs line up with what is available in free agency in the draft pretty well. And I think that's something that we've seen as we broke into the Senior Bowl. We've broken down some of these free agents, and I think that there are a lot of symmetry between Bears needs and what's available out there. So I think this is a good year for the Bears to have as much cap space as they do, and for this draft class to be so deep at certain positions. We think it's deep at O-line and D-line, and that's exactly what the Bears need, offensive tackle as well. Tight end, I think, is a good draft class. I think they need another tight end after letting go of Gerald Everett to create some more space. And then running back, I think you need a guy to go with 𝗦cie, as Ben Johnson calls him. I think it's a deep class at running back as well. But now let's hear from Shapiro what you think from hearing Ryan Poles talk.
Yeah, I want to echo some of your sentiments and I guess just elaborate on some of the points that really stood out. You know, when he's talking about Ben Johnson's clarity at the positions and how that allows him to be more aggressive. Not only is that a tone shift, right? Typically it's, hey, you know, spending on free agency is not the best way to build a draft because typically you're overspending and yada, yada. You know, we've heard about that deliberate, maybe delicate balance of not overspending guys, but hearing like clarity allows you to be more aggressive, to me, like definitely stuck out as a tone shift. But then he elaborated on like, Ben presented a plan, a clear plan of every single position, not just we're looking for athletes, we're looking for tough guys, we're looking for physical, we're looking for this, you know, group of traits. He's like, no, this is what I want in a running back. Here are the traits I want in a running back. Here's the weight range I want in a running back. Here's the trait I want in an offensive tackle. Here's the trait I want in a guard. Here's the weight ranges. You know, I'm sure it goes on and on and on. So here are the speed ranges that we want for these players. So that detailed plan, not just for personnel as a whole, but for these specific position groups, to me, again, it's like, oh yeah, okay, this guy really does have a very clear idea of how he wants to build this team. And that's got to be so helpful for Ryan Poles, because you have this very clear framework to work within. And of course, they're on the same page. It sounds like they're very much on the same page. And when you have that alignment, when you have that clarity, it feels like it would make going through this part of the season much, much easier, because you can really narrow in and you can really focus on the guys who fit your needs. And will the Bears be able to get their prototype player at every single position and fit all their needs? No, like you're going to have some guys that only check 3 out of 6 boxes or 4 out of 6 boxes, whatever, what have you. But having that narrow focus, I thought was really, really impressive.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's huge when you're looking for a player and you have that alignment with your coach. You got to realize the GM might love a guy, think this guy is unbelievable, but if it doesn't fit the system that Dennis Allen is trying to run on defense or Ben Johnson is trying to run on offense, that matters. You can have a play. That's why you see sometimes players go somewhere else and they have these great careers when they weren't. Like, why wasn't that guy great when he was with him? The system matters. And I think some of these offensive linemen might get better. Obviously, they need, and another thing that we'll talk about when Ben Johnson says, like, we don't need, 5 new guys up there. Sometimes the system matters, protecting guys, running the ball a certain way, misdirection, the play action. And then you got Dan Rochar, who teaches things a complete different way. So I think as far as offensive line is concerned, at least, that matters so much, and knowing exactly how you are going to be using these guys.
Yeah. Narrowing in on the offensive line a little bit, Ryan Poles also spoke specifically about Braxton Jones, who's like, is he the most polarizing player on this team? It seems like fans just feel so strongly about Braxton Jones, left tackle. It's obviously an enormously important position. He was solid. He was fine. Is he the best left tackle in the NFL? No, but serviceable, room to improve, right? And Ryan Poles shared his thoughts, basically saying, yeah, in 2024, I thought he played well. He obviously is recovering from an ankle injury, which is a serious thing. So he's like, we have to see how he comes out the other side of that. He did say that he's on schedule with his rehab and making good progress. But then he also opened it up and said there's going to be competition there, which we really haven't seen for Braxton Jones throughout his NFL career, right? Braxton Jones took over that starting left tackle job like 5 OTAs into his rookie season. They moved Tevin Jenkins out of that spot fairly quickly. They might have tried somebody else, some veteran who didn't make the team, and then it was Braxton Jones, and it's never looked back. And there was never really any real competition for him last year. So that's also a bit of a tone shift that, okay, there's going to be competition for Braxton Jones. And 𝗵𝗏 was supposed to be a little bit of competition last year, but I don't know how realistic it was for him to compete, especially when he had the quad setback. So that's another change. Just your thoughts specifically on, I guess, this little update on Braxton Jones and the future of the team at left tackle.
Yeah, I think that shows that they're going to go out and get someone. I don't know if it's free agent or the draft, but they're probably going to bring someone else in. Obviously, 𝗵𝗏, I think that they're not ready to move on from him. He didn't look good when he played in his minimal time last year, but he's a third-round pick, a high third-round pick. So I think him having a year, he's healthy, learning the playbook, coming from Yale. I mean, this guy didn't get to see much action at all. We know he missed OTAs, he missed training camp, he missed all the preseason games. This will be his first year. He's going to have some time to really get some action. But I also know Poles, I think on the Florio show, mentioned that 𝗵𝗏 has some flexibility, that he could possibly play some guard. So I think that could add some depth. If 𝗵𝗏 shows not only he could play tackle, but he could play guard, that adds to his value, gives him a better chance to be a contributor to this team. And then obviously, I don't know what this means. On Florio, when Ben Johnson was talking, he said, yeah, I was in the weight room the other day, and I asked Braxton Jones if he could catch a football, and he said, yeah, he can catch a football. So we're going to have to get Braxton involved in the receiving game as well. So I go, does that mean Braxton's going to be your starting left tackle if he's going to be catching passes? Obviously, it was probably him just having a little fun. But, looking into that, I think they do think highly. They like Braxton. Pro Football Focus rated him as the 21st overall tackle, not just left tackle, but overall. So, I mean, but he's a solid starter. I've seen it. You've seen it. He needs to get better at the bull rush. He needs to get a little bit better anchor. And obviously, he's not going to be able to build a ton of strength this offseason because he's coming back. But I've had that same ankle injury. I fractured my lower fib with a little bit of ligament stuff. And it's not a bad injury to come back from. I mean, there's a lot worse out there. And I'm confident that, especially with the advances in medical since the last 10 years ago when I got the surgery done, and I was back during OTAs, got hurt in week 17. I played in every single OTA. So I think Braxton will be fine as far as health-wise, but there will be competition there, whether that's a tackle like Alaric Jackson in free agency, whether they're going Kelvin Banks, or if Will Johnson somehow falls all the way to 10 for the Bears. I think there will be some form of competition for him, but I do like Braxton. He's a solid starter. Like you said, you can get better. Do you want to go with Darnell Wright, who's looking like one of the up-and-coming right tackles in the league, and then get a left tackle to go with that? I don't think Braxton Jones is a guy that can play guard. Maybe Braxton could be your swing tackle. And you did hear Ben Johnson say it's not just 5. It's 6. It's 7. It's 8. You even said 9. You need 9 offensive linemen. And he does use a lot of offensive linemen in some of his stuff. You'll see him bringing his extra tight end as an offensive lineman, an extra offensive lineman as a tight end, Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a lot of depth on this roster. So you could definitely see someone else coming in at left tackle.
Before we turn the page to Ben Johnson, who spoke after Ryan Poles, anything else stand out to you from Ryan Poles' availability?
No, nothing's jumping off the page. I liked what I heard from him, though. I think he handled himself well, and I'm hoping that he can turn around some of his his misses and turn those into makes.
Totally. So Ben Johnson, spoke. You went into, it's going to be really important for us to find the best 5 and to find a lot of guys, because a lot of guys play significant snaps. Injuries happen on the offensive line. But that he also, basically said, we talk about it a lot on the show, and that's kind of the discourse that, hey, the Bears could potentially have 4 new starters on the offensive line, or, at least 3 in the interior. And he kind of talked that down a little bit without really saying it or mentioning it, and saying like, hey, 1 or 2 guys could make a difference, because all of a sudden, if you remove the weakest part of the chain, everybody else is playing better. So it might not necessarily need to be so many moves to get the top 5, the full combo, playing together better. So I thought that was interesting. But Clay, dig into the Ben Johnson stuff, man.
No, I like where you started right there, and him talking about the offensive line. It's not one, it's not two. But then also he was asked if you can overhaul an offensive line in one offseason. And he said, yeah, I've seen people do it before. He goes, and he pointed out the Carolina Panthers, who got some big contracts to offensive linemen. Not sure that they were great contracts, but how they were able to turn around their season in the second half of the season by signing some big players in free agency. So I think they're definitely going to make some moves there. I'm not sure it's going to be as many as people think, like 4 or 5 new guys on the offensive line. And obviously not starters. We know Darnell Wright is going to be a starter. He's successful in the last couple of years, has improved, and was a number 10 overall pick. So I thought that was definitely interesting. And the other thing was he reiterated he's going to be breaking this thing down to the studs. And he got a little more specific. He's like, no, we're not talking about just concepts. Yes, concepts, but we are going to go over the huddle, how you call the plays, the snap count, the motions, formations, how you call everything, how you're seeing everything. So I love that he has a plan for that. He's not just saying I'm breaking down the studs. He is going back to the basics and starting with the fundamentals and starting with everything to do with the play, and that starts in the huddle. And another thing I really liked that I heard from him is him being excited to work with a guy like Caleb Williams, saying he's never had the experience to work with a guy that can go off schedule, off platform. And he's seen it before. It's demoralizing from the other sideline, but he's excited about working with a guy like Caleb Williams. For an offensive coordinator that's as creative as Ben Johnson is, this opens up a whole new level here. Now you don't got a guy that's just a statue back in the pocket. And Jared Goff was explosive because he was efficient. Caleb Williams is explosive because he's an explosive athlete and can do a lot of things that way. So those were my 2 major takeaways from what Ben Johnson said, how he's excited about playing with Caleb, his ability. He's never had that before, and he's looking forward to it, and how he reiterated breaking things down to the studs, building this offense back up for Caleb Williams, not just plopping down Jared Goff's offense, the offense he had with the Lions last year, and just saying, hey, learn this, and we're going to be good to go. So those were 2 of the things that I took away. But honestly, the most important thing that I got from Ben Johnson was his interview with the Barstool guys, Alex. And he said that he was able to squat 405 pounds. And he said he is going all the way down, all the way up, 405. He's squatting more than most of the players on the team, man. That's impressive. You got a guy that's a gym rat that's putting the time in the weight room, that's squatting. Squatting's tough. It's hard. So to me, we got the right guy. Yeah, the other stuff's great, but this guy is still squatting at his age as a head coach. That's the right guy for the job. Bears are going to the Super Bowl. Let's go.
I need to see a video of the squatting because 405 is an outrageous number. It's like, wait, what? So I need video evidence of Ben Johnson's. I'm not trying to like say he's BSing, but like I need to see that. You know what I mean?
Show me the clips of you squatting 405. No, me personally, I wasn't a big squat. I'm like, dude, you can't tell me Ben Johnson's throwing up 405. Man, I was an NFL tight end. You know, this guy's squatting 405. Like, come on, man, that's impressive. Even if it's 350, I'm still, hey, let's go.
Yeah,
let's go.
That's a big number. That's a big number. No, that's great. You know, it is interesting because obviously Ben Johnson spending a lot of time with the personnel and installing his stuff and creating his program, and there's so much work to do. But then also hearing him go through the evaluation of the players that they do have on the roster. And we've seen now 2 of these transactions, right? Gerald Everett, I think we expected him to be cut just because the production wasn't there and he was a Shane Waldron guy. And obviously Waldron's out of town. Now we got Ben Johnson in here. But the DeMarcus Walker was a little bit more surprising to me. And they spoke to this a little bit, saying, like, listen, if this is a guy who's in a bit of a gray area with our scheme and gray area with the contract, that we wanted to do them the solid of releasing them now, because as you said, right, the agents are doing so much legwork during this time before free agency opens up, to give them the opportunity to start doing their work, to find their new homes. So I thought it was interesting that, DeMarcus Walker, who, did he live up to his contract? Maybe not, but was a solid rotational guy, right? As your number 3 DE, as your NASCAR package, defensive tackle. He did come through with some big plays and some big moments, and, was solid. So that gray area with the scheme fit is kind of interesting to me as well. And it will be very interesting to see what is the type of defensive line that Dennis Allen wants to build, because obviously Cam Jordan, so important to that defensive line. Cam Jordans don't grow on trees. So seeing where, the clarity with that scheme fit with the defensive line is going to be something interesting to monitor moving forward as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I thought that was intriguing as well, because we both liked DeMarcus Walker. We thought he was a solid depth piece, a guy that could play some 5 technique, play inside, outside. He was one of those energy guys. And I was surprised with that. Yeah, Gerald Everett, did he steal a little bit of money? Yeah, he probably did. He bank robbed us a little bit over here in Chicago. But I think that's intriguing, because there's no number 2 tight end now. You're going to have to find a number 2 tight end. So you got to have a plan for that. They got to like somebody in free agency or someone in the draft. I don't think they're going to use 1 through 41 on the tight end. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do at that position as well, and see if he can find a guy that he utilized in the same way as he used Laporta. But going back also to what Waddle and Sylvie, they asked Poles about 𝗗elle and if they still see him as a big-time part of this offense. And Poles said, yeah. He said it was just because, in so many words, he's like, yeah, we had Keenan Allen in there. We didn't get a lot of touches, and because of the struggles with our rookie quarterback in Keenan Allen, we couldn't really get 𝗗elle involved as much as we wanted to. So overall, I think that you're going to see a little bit more from 𝗗elle. And I don't think he's a Laporta type guy, but I think he's going to be more of a pass catcher than we've seen in the past, just because I don't see a lot of those guys where the Bears have availability in the draft. There's good guys in draft. Maybe Elijah Arroyo falls. Maybe Mason Taylor falls to 72, and you pick up one of those guys, and you think that could be one of your tight ends. But they got a lot of needs, and free agency I don't think is very deep in tight end. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there.
Absolutely. All right, so Combine here in Indianapolis, it's an opportunity to talk to pretty much everybody in the NFL world. There are availabilities with head coaches and GMs from across the league, and had the opportunity to talk with a lot of guys about the new Bears staff, because it's a lot of new guys on this Bears staff. And some of the best and brightest minds in the NFL had a lot of very nice things to say. Now, would I expect them to say not nice things? No, of course not. They're not gonna be like, oh, that guy, yeah, he stunk. I'm so glad he's in Chicago. That would never happen. But a lot of the praise was effusive and was kind of detailed. Aaron Glenn, new head coach of the Jets, practiced against Ben Johnson every day when he was the defensive coordinator of the Lions, and Ben Johnson was the OC, and basically saying that Ben Johnson, it would impress him. He wasn't just super detailed on offense. He was also super detailed on defense already as an offensive coordinator. So that in-depth knowledge of the defense and how he could use that to his advantage on offense, that's something that will help him be a head coach. He's like, is he focused on the offense? Yes, 100%, of course. But his understanding of defense helps him do that. Dan Campbell also said, listen, this is my guy forever, no love lost. I'll just rattle through some of them really quickly. Sean Payton, who has worked with a lot of the Bears staff, both in New Orleans and Denver. Dennis Allen and Dan Rochar, he called them both incredible teachers. Declan Doyle, he worked with Declan Doyle in New Orleans and Denver, brought him along with him 2 spots. So that's a vote of confidence where he's like, I'm taking you with me from one spot to another. Said he was not surprised at his incredibly quick rise to OC, called him a great football thinker. And then finally, Andy Reid spoke about Eric Bieniemy. And, we've talked on this show about Eric Bieniemy being very demanding, right? He has that reputation of being a super demanding coach. He said, like, yeah, he does. He asks a lot of players, but he also knows how to love up on them too. So that's an important bit of tough love. And he basically said, as running backs coach, because I asked him about running backs coach specifically, like he maximized those guys. He literally got the full potential out of our RBs, which is exactly what you want to hear out of a position coach. So just Clay, like, your thoughts on this effusive praise for the Bears staff, and now that we've had a little bit of distance from the staff being put together, just like the job that Ben Johnson has done putting all of these guys together in the same room to lead this team.
And we forgot to mention this one, which I honestly think might have been my favorite Ben Johnson quote, but it goes along with everything that you just said and you talking to all these other coaches. Was Ben Johnson said, I didn't just bring along a lot of my friends, guys that I've worked with in the past. I put this staff together because I wanted a bunch of different coaches, a bunch of different styles, and a bunch of different backgrounds on my staff. And I thought I did an excellent job there. To step back for a second, when you're getting that kind of praise from other coaches, and yeah, maybe some people say it might be lip service. No, that's real. When you get praise from your peers, like whenever I would talk to a player in the league when I was playing, like, man, I really love what you do. Like the way you block and you catch, like that stuff is important. And those are the guys that mean the most because they know exactly what you're going through. They do it themselves. They're in a similar position. And when you get praise from those guys, to me, that always meant the most from the other players or even a coach that you'll see like, hey man, love what you do. Keep doing it. That's impressive. So that's how you know you're getting the right type of guys. And then Ben Johnson putting together the staff, not bringing along a lot of his friends, not bringing along all the guys that just have the same background as him is huge. He alluded to, Press Taylor having a background with Chip Kelly. That's where I met Press was in Philly when Chip Kelly was the coach. So now he knows how Chip Kelly used to run, the hurry up stuff, the quick game stuff, how he would be so fast and getting the ball down the field. He talked about Bieniemy, his shotgun runs, how he was an expert when it came to the shotgun runs when he was in Kansas City. He talked about, obviously he brought Randall L. from Detroit, but just how much he praised him. And he said that Randall L. is not just going to be a wide receiver coach. He's an assistant head coach. He is, to me, from what I heard, and not just in the press conference, but in the national media, I think the offensive coordinator is going to be Antoine Randall L. He's going to be a guy that's running some of these meetings when Ben Johnson is doing other things, obviously with Declan Doyle, but he's going to have a huge job and a huge position with the Bears as that assistant head coach. It's like his number 2 in command, obviously, when he is the assistant head coach. Bringing in Dennis Allen, a guy that has numerous years as a defensive coordinator, not just bringing in a guy that he worked with here. Loved what he did, bringing in the staff. And then he talked about throwing ideas off of Dennis and talking about how they're on the same page as far as affecting the quarterback defensively, whether that's jamming receivers, throwing them off his timing, whether that's getting pass rush. And he said, we definitely want to upgrade the edge rusher position. And we've been talking about that. Are they going to do that in free agency? I think there's a couple guys out there. Josh Sweat, you loved Milton Williams. I like Milton Williams as well. I think they're Malcolm Koonce. I mean, there's some guys there that are a little bit under the radar, but then the draft is super deep there. So it's a really, really exciting to see what's going to happen here, at post-combine.
Yeah. Speaking of DL guys, today, we were recording this on Wednesday, is defensive line day at the NFL Combine in terms of media availability. Lots of dudes available to the media. Go to chsn.com or check out CHSN socials. We have so much combine content. We cannot go over it all, but we talked to so many guys. So if you want to just hear from a billion dudes at the combine, for sure, check out all of our other platforms to get all of that content. But I want to drill down on one thing that really made an impression upon me today. Speaking to some of Gervon Dexter's former Florida Gator teammates, I would just say Gervon, before I could even say his full name, Gervon Dexter, face is lighting up. Specifically, I spoke with Princely Umanmielen and Antoine Powell Ryland Jr., and both of them, again, were just like, oh, Gervon, Big G, the bowling ball. I love playing with that guy, and just talk about like not only enjoying him in the locker room as a friend and how much of a vibes guy he was, and like all the fun. Like, yeah, we would have fun and we would play together, but then like we would also get super serious and like talk about our dreams and aspirations together and look forward to the future and talk about how we could be the greatest and how great that was in the locker room. But then also like line it up next to that guy who's a freak. Have you seen him? He's so big and he moves so good for it, for his size. These guys, again, effusive. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, he was a great teammate, good leader. You could tell that these Florida Gators loved Gervon Dexter. And that really made an impression upon me of like, okay, Gervon, a young player, as the Bears are looking for these young guys to step up, tone setters, culture builders. I had never really thought of Gervon in that way. And I'm not slighting Gervon Dexter because, you think of Tremaine Edmonds, you think of Jalen Johnson, Eddie Jackson was with the team. Like, these are the leaders that you think of, Roquan Smith, those types of guys. Eventually, some people are going to have to step up, right? Some people are going to have to step up. And hearing how important and how beloved Gervon Dexter was to his former teammates, it was the first time I'm thinking, could Gervon step up and be that culture, tone-setting guy who brings everybody together? So did you have glue guys like that in the locker room, just people that were magnets that helped everybody out, raised everybody up? And how important are those guys in the locker room?
Yeah, you always have those guys on a team, and it's usually, I'd say, more of the veteran guys. But I really love that Dexter is known as that dude. That just shows you he's a good teammate, and he's not just a guy that's out there for himself. He's going to help the young guys that come in now as he's moving more towards he's not a veteran, but more of a, he's got a lot of experience under his belt now. So excited to see where that goes, and just shows you that he's the right type of guy. You talk about Poles wanting to build the culture of a team. Shows me that he is a guy that is one of these culture guys you can build with, that is going to help the younger guys. And I was lucky in my time. I had a few tight ends that were like that. Mercedes Lewis, as the Bears. I mean, that's one of the reasons they kept him on the roster. He's a guy that's going to talk to all the young guys, is going to help them, has been in the league forever. Brent Selleck was another one of those guys that just would go out of his way to help the younger guys. And that, I can't talk about how much that helps a young player develop. And that's why obviously there's been some things here and there. Why didn't they bring in a veteran quarterback for Caleb to be able to talk to? It's important because when you got a guy there that's one of your peers that's seeing the same things, that's going through that's learning the same offense and going through it helps because you have a guy that's doing it with you, but has also done this in other places, has done this in other systems, and just has another perspective for you to go off of. So I think that's huge, Alex. Other thing I wanted to talk about, I know we don't got much time left here, was I thought was interesting. This isn't a Chicago thing, but we're all talking about 𝗚cie Smith, and he's a guy that everybody wants for the Bears. And Brett Veach seems to think that he can keep him in Kansas City, and saying he's already had contact with his agency and that he expects to be able to get 𝗚cie Smith back. In my mind, like, listen, it's a free market at this point. He's going to be a free agent. You're not going to franchise tag him, so you're not going to have as much money as the Bears. If it came down to just dollars and cents, 𝗚cie Smith could go to the Bears because the Bears would be able to offer him more money. Unless the Chiefs backload a contract and he wants to come back to Kansas City, I don't think that's a thing that they could say that confidently, as Brett Veach was saying. But I think that makes the Bears fans and the analysts think, okay, if he does go back to Kansas City, where you could see a world where, hey, they just lost a Super Bowl, they won the Super Bowl last year, he might want to stay there and keep that ball rolling. So now we got to look a little bit down the line at guard, but I think we've talked about it a million times. There's a lot of other guards besides 𝗚cie Smith. You love Mekhi Becton, I do as well. I thought that Kevin Zeitler had a great year. I know he's a little bit older, but I mean, he was excellent in Detroit, and he knew exactly how Ben Johnson wanted to run his system. So if 𝗚cie Smith isn't a Bear, like, all is not lost. There are some other guards there, and it looks like Kansas City really thinks they can keep him.
Absolutely. One good last nugget to go out on. That was definitely, that was an interesting little thing to hear, because it seemed like a lot of people were expecting Trey Smith to be out of there. But hey, increased salary cap. It's extra ammunition for everybody, not just the Chicago Bears. Also extra ammunition for the Chiefs. So if they have Trey Smith circled as that guy to get the extra dollars, that's a move where, again, if we have no idea where Trey Smith was on the Bears board of free agents, but if he was the top guy, you might have to go to 2, you might have to go to 3, or will Ben Johnson's clarity allow them to be uber aggressive, and is Trey Smith going to make crazy money with the Chicago Bears? We don't know. we have no idea. But that was an interesting update, because yes, Trey Smith has been one of the most talked about dudes in Chicago as they try and get the offensive line figured out. So Clay, before we get out of here, any final thoughts? Combine, not combine, anything? What do you got, Clay?
Man, I think we covered it all, but I thought it was a great day to hear from the leadership. Ben Johnson really sounds like a guy that is the right leader. He's a guy, as a player, I want to be my head coach. He's intelligent. He's bright. He's got a good plan. He's got systems in place. He brought in a good staff. Ryan Poles looks like he's very excited to be working in tandem with Ben Johnson. He's got all the scouts, all the coaches together, really coming up with exactly what they want to find in this draft, in free agency. So everything's sounding good right now. I have no qualms about anything I heard this weekend, and looking forward to seeing and hearing the rest of your content out there in Indy. Alex is on the ground in Indy. This podcast is being filmed. I'm in Chicago. He's in Indianapolis. He's going to get more great stuff for us to talk about, and all the hits on 𝗬ʰsn.com. So make sure you stay in there as well. But, overall, I think it's been a good couple days so far.
Love it. I don't even have to do the plug. You did the plug for me. My hype man and my plug man. I love it. Thank you, Clay. So I'll just say, hey, thank you for listening to the Charter Podcast presented by St. Xavier University. We really appreciate your time. And we're going to have more sweet stuff for you coming soon. Have a wonderful week, everybody.